Can a game about death be cozy? Spiritfarer aims to answer that question. A management game where you must tend a garden, cook meals, and build homes for wayward spirits, while also helping them come to terms with their life and death, and enable them to move on through the Everdoor. It's certainly a strange clash of tones, where the game wants you to feel chilled out with no pressure while you manage your ship, but then also wants you to feel sad and depressed as you learn more about the lives of your passengers, and ultimately say goodbye to all of those people that you held dear in your life. So is this game cozy or depressing? Should you push through anyway? Let's discuss. You know what's not depressing? Liking the video and subscribing to the channel. I gotta start off just by talking about this genre of game in general, putting out there that this is usually not the type of game that I play. Honestly, I don't even really understand the name, cozy. I feel cozy when I snuggle up on the couch, wrapped up in a blanket, and start murdering demons in Doom, or grinding battles in an RPG. So why is it exclusively used to describe these management-type, farming-type games? I'm not really ever a fan of management either. It's certainly fun at first. In the early game, there's usually a steady stream of upgrades or new activities to partake in or new things to build. However, after a while, the gaps between such new unlocks increase, but the tedium of planting the same crop or chopping down the same tree over and over and over continues. To its credit, Spiritfarer tries to avoid this issue by having a ton of stuff to do. There is a huge array of buildings to build and upgrade. You can have a garden, an orchard, a sawmill, a foundry, a smelter, a crusher, and many more. On top of that, each of the 11 spirits that you can fare in this game will each want a house, and then will ask for 3 upgrades to said house. On top of that, you unlock new movement abilities for main character Stella, the Spiritfarer, which does give the game a bit of a Metroidvania feel, as you'll be returning to previous towns and areas on the map to reach now accessible areas, allowing you to collect new materials that maybe can only be found in this place. Unfortunately, it still does not escape the fate of poor pacing, which I think plagues this genre. It either felt like I had nothing to do or way too much to do. The activities seemed to come in bursts, where after an hour of maybe only having 1 or 2 requests to focus on, sailing around to farm materials for a single boat upgrade that it was all I had left to do. Then you get that upgrade or finish that request, and now all of a sudden you either can access a new part of the map or unlock new conversations, and suddenly you have 10 things to do. In addition to those things to do, there's new materials to collect, new areas to explore. You may even find a new spirit to bring upon your boat and begin their storyline. When this happens, it feels like there's a ton to do, but that really starkly contrasts with the periods of time in the game where it feels like there's nothing to do. The highs of this game are genuinely great, with a great and satisfying gameplay loop, but the lows are so low and can last a very long time. There was a couple times during my playthrough where I genuinely almost just gave up on the game because I was so bored of farming materials, and it felt like that was all I could do at that point. In hindsight, I may have been able to avoid some of these low periods, or at least shortened them, by being a little more diligent in tracking which resources were available to me at which locations, so that I could really focus on crafting or purchasing the needed upgrades that were blocking my progress. But at the same time, I feel like I won't be the only one who's going to run into this issue. Again, this is kind of a chilled out game, that's sort of the point, and this idea of min-maxing every single thing you're doing and making sure you're totally optimized and efficient just to not be bored seems like a bit much. The game really does not hold your hand and is content to let you aimlessly explore this purgatory that you and your fellow spirits have found yourselves in. I want to be clear, I'm not one to beg for hand-holding. That said, the descriptions of your objectives are not always clear, and in some cases aren't even correct. For example, I had one objective to speak to one of my passengers. I'd keep speaking to them and nothing would happen. After a while of trying, I looked it up, and it turns out that I wasn't supposed to speak to them. I was actually supposed to go to a specific location on the map and talk to somebody else, a completely different NPC. Nothing about the objective that I had would have made me even know that that's something I was supposed to do. And that actually caused one of these down periods I was talking about, because this was pretty much the only spirit I had on my boat, and I didn't know how to progress their storyline. Other examples of this kind of frustration I had would be tasks that required you to, quote, speak to NPC X. That would be all you'd be given. Speak to this character, with no notes about where that character was on the map, what town they were in even, or what location to go travel to. This was frustrating. Yes, you would be given that location initially, so when you pick up the quest or progress the story, the person you were talking to would say, oh, we need to go talk to this guy in this location. But if you didn't write it down or immediately head to the map to start travel to that location, you're gonna forget. There's a lot of side quests in this game, and if you don't immediately start them, you're gonna forget where you're supposed to go, and then you're just gonna wonder what you're supposed to do when you go back to your quest log. I don't think it's hand-holding to say, go talk to this guy who is in this town. To me, that just feels like a common sense feature that we should expect in the game. I don't see that as hand-holding. It's just a quality of life improvement that really should have been there. While the main gameplay is management-based, the story and narrative of Spiritfarer is all about moving on. Before you're able to finally ferry your passengers into the afterlife, you have to complete requests for them. These will usually reveal facts of their life to you, as well as their relationship to Stella. It seems every passenger in the game is someone known to Stella in some way during her life, be that family, friend, neighbor. There's not a lot of dialogue in the game, and none of it is voiced, yet somehow they managed to make quite an effective narrative. I really appreciated that there wasn't an overabundance of exposition. Instead, the game will give you small details and insights into the characters as you go about their different requests. You get just enough so that you feel like you know who this person was and their relationship to Stella, without getting so much that it feels like you're just reading novels of text about them. I think that really would have slowed down what could already at times be a very slow gameplay experience. At the same time, though, you're not given so little that you don't feel this connection to these characters, that you don't feel the weight of the narrative. This is a game about death and moving on, and there are a number of emotional moments, elevated because of the connection you do start to have with each of the characters. I talked about this a little bit in my review of Kina, that the game seemed to ignore her, as it was more focused on the different spirits that she was helping, and that's really not the case here. Since each passenger has that personal relationship with Stella, she's not lost in the shuffle of the narrative. And while your main purpose in the game is to help these people move on and come to terms with their lives, their death, their regrets, the story really, ultimately, is about Stella doing the same. The clashing tones can be an issue. I don't play these games much, but at the same time I would never load into one that's supposed to be this cozy, relaxed experience, while also at the same time thinking, oh, I can't wait for this game to make me cry. They're just two different headspaces, I think, that you have to be in. And I have to admit, at times I did find it a little daunting to load the game back up, because I knew I was close to the end of somebody's story and that would be emotional, and it was just a lot to sometimes want to play that. To the game's credit, you do have a lot of time usually between these moments, and the moment-to-moment gameplay itself is not depressing. It's quite relaxing and fun and does meet that cozy moniker. It can actually be fairly lighthearted at times even, but it's always lurking in the background, much like death, which comes for us all. For a final rating, I would give the presentation a 4 out of 5, the story a 4 out of 5, and the gameplay a 3.5 out of 5, for a final rating of 4 out of 5. And for value, I would say this game is worth it. Pretty fun game with a really engaging narrative. I think you will enjoy it. But what do you think? Is Spiritfarer good? Is it too sad? Are you just not a fan of these cozy management games, period? Let me know in the comments down below. What other cozy games do you like to play? What's your idea of a cozy game? And I will see you all with the next video.